Hello and welcome to or welcome back to the channel. I have another lens review for you today. I'm going to be talking about my macro lens. This could seriously be the best budget macro lens in existence. So let's dig in and talk about this lens. This is a true one-to-one macro lens and it is very affordable. It actually came in a 2-pack with my wide angle landscape lens, which is the last lens that I reviewed. So first off, one-to-one macro lens means that the subject is recorded on the camera sensor at its real world size. There's no enlarging and there's no shrinking. It's true to size. If this subject is 1 inch wide in real life, that means it's going to take up 1 inch of the camera's sensor. So at 1-to-1, you are capturing extreme detail, textures, pollen, insect eyes, things that you can't literally see with your naked eye. Most lenses cannot focus close enough to do this. And even if you take the photo and you crop later, it's not going to give you the same result. You're going to lose details. But a true macro lens gives you those details optically. So optical detail does not equal digital zoom. So on this DX sensor, this crop sensor of Nikon's, 1-to-1 still means life size on the sensor. That crop factor only affects the field of view, not the magnification. So this isn't zoom or compression. This is the lens doing the work. All of that to say, when a lens says 1-to-1 macro, it means the subject is captured on the camera sensor at its real life size. This is why macro lenses show insane detail in the photos, because it's optical magnification, not cropping or zoom. So the trade-off with a 1-to-1 lens is that you have to get very close, which can make lighting challenging sometimes. But getting those details is so worth it. Just a couple of points on what I just said. There are times where I'm trying to do macro of flowers and there are bees on the flowers. And if there's bees, me personally, I would rather stand back and zoom in than to be on top of the bees with this lens. But if you're not afraid of being stung and you don't mind bees, then go for it. The other thing I wanted to point out with lighting is I have had challenges where I'm right on something and you want to bring in another light from somewhere, or maybe a speed light that is elevated on top of your camera perhaps, because your onboard flash, when you're that close, you're going to have a shadow from, if you're using this flash, there's going to be a shadow on it from the projection of the lens in between your subject and the flash because you're so close up. Outdoors in really great lighting, or if you have an external light or an elevated speed light, that will work. But if you're up close, like in poor lighting, and you're counting on this flash, and when you're that close up, you're going to have shadows from the lens. I have seen ring flash that goes on the end of the lens. It seems like it would work really well. It seems like a great idea. I never got one because I just never found one that would fit this lens. But I've heard they don't really work that great. Even though the idea seems great, I've heard in practice people who have used them don't really like them. So just sharing. I would love if you've used one, if you would leave a comment down below and let me know how you liked it. Okay, so all of that technical detail out of the way. For people who aren't sure what makes a macro lens, let's talk about who this lens is really for. Because I've said before, not every lens is for every photographer. There's no good or bad lenses. It's just, is it a good fit for you or not? So this is a great lens for a beginner macro photographer, which I definitely was when I got this lens. If you're shooting nature and insects and flowers, things like that, this is a great choice. For product and detail photography, this is also a really good choice for that kind of work. And it's really outstanding if you are a food photographer. And anyone who's using a crop sensor Nikon that wants detailed photos without breaking the bank, this is your lens. This is also great for doing portraits at 40 millimeters. It can do really nice portraits. And one other use for it that is amazing is if you photograph artwork, which this is a pretty big field out there of people who photograph artwork for a lot of different reasons, but it's mostly to be able to put it onto a website or something like that. And this is the perfect lens because it gives you that one-to-one, and there is no distortion or anything like at the corners or any of it. It gets the entire thing in the real size perfectly. So it's great for that. Let me just briefly say who this lens might not be for. If you're doing fast action shooting or very long distance shooting, this would not be the best choice for that. So this is a 40 millimeter DX lens, which is Nikon's crop sensor lens for DSLRs with an aperture of 2.8. It is a true one-to-one macro lens. It has a great minimum focus distance. So this is probably the first thing that really wowed me with this lens, because you can be on top of something and focusing on it. Whereas if I'm using one of my other lenses and sometimes I'm too close, it will not focus and I have to keep backing up until it's ready to focus. And that's where it's great to have a good zoom, because you can back up and zoom in. But you will not get the same shot. You will not have that same detail doing that as you will with a true macro lens. It also has a very quiet and fast AFP focusing motor. It is very lightweight and compact. It doesn't protrude a huge amount from the camera body. It does also come with a hood, which I'm a big fan of hoods. It just protects the tip of your lens from getting hit or scratched, and even helps prevent it from getting dirty to a certain extent. And if you're not using it, you can click it on the other direction. So you can still have it with you and use it or not use it, and it tucks away perfectly out of sight. This lens does not have vibration reduction, but honestly, with smaller lenses like this, I don't personally feel that it's really necessary. It's with my bigger, longer, long distance lenses that I have a harder time steadying that I appreciate that on. So yes, it is a plastic build lens, but it feels very solid and sturdy. I've seen a lot of people recently complaining about lenses being plastic, and it probably is cost effective, but it also keeps the weight down. So if you're carrying this on a strap, like a metal lens would weigh a lot more and could be undoable for some people. But it is very solid, very sturdy. I've had this for quite a few years now, and it is still in perfect condition. And I do use it. I use it quite a bit. It's not just sitting on a shelf or in a case. The lens mount itself is metal. So that is something a lot of people look for, and it does definitely have that. Like I said earlier, it is super lightweight. So it is great for hiking or traveling or things like that. The focus ring turns very smoothly. A lot of people who normally use autofocus like to do manual focus specifically for macro. It's just a personal preference, but some people really like it. I do tend to use it more with macro than any other time. And I am a lover of back button focus, but if you're not, anytime you're doing manual focus is a great time to have your back button focus set up, because then when you're pushing the shutter to capture the photo, you're not messing up your focus. It's not going to refocus. And that's the whole reason I don't like that. I prefer the back button because I get it in focus and then I can just take my picture without worrying about it messing up what I just focused on. But I will be doing a whole separate video on back button focus, what it is and who it's for and how to set it up. That will be coming in the future. So it balances very nicely on the D3400 body, which is what I have. So talking about the autofocus on this lens, it is very fast and quiet for most photography. Sometimes there's a little bit of hunting that it's doing when you're trying to focus up super close, which is normal for most macro lenses. It's not specific to this lens. Like I said earlier, this lens works really well for flowers, doing product shots, still subjects, portraits, photographing artwork. This lens is also really great for doing food photography. It would not be ideal for capturing like flying insects or fast-moving wildlife. So let's talk about image quality, because this is really a huge plus with this lens. It is amazing. It is extremely sharp all the way across the photo, center to edge, which is why a lot of people like to use it for photographing artwork and photographing products as well. It gives you great contrast and color. There is very minimal distortion, which again is why people like to use it to photograph artwork. And it can give you surprisingly good bokeh for a macro lens. Some people say bokeh. I was taught bokeh. I like bokeh, but that blurry background. And that is another reason why I say it is good for using for portraits. I do typically use my 35mm that I already did a video on for portraits, but you can use this one too. And it will give sharp images even when your aperture is wide open at the 2.8. So I will put some photos here to show you both from this lens and then from my most used and most loved 18-300 lens set at 40mm, and we'll do some comparisons. So this is the image I took with the macro lens. I was focusing on the star and it's super crisp and sharp. I was very up close when I took this photo, as you'll see in the video coming up. Then this is my 18-300mm lens set at 40mm. I had to back up to get it in focus, but actually in retrospect, it's not completely in focus, the star. Definitely not the same photo. And then I just zoomed my 18-300 all the way. And it's very similar to the first photo, but not quite the same, and still definitely not as sharp. There it is again, just to compare with the other one. I will also insert video footage showing where I was able to focus, how close up with this lens, and then with my 18-300, how far I had to back up before it could focus. So here I am with the macro lens. I'm quite close and I'm focusing on the star on the hood. Then I got my 18-300. I set it at 40mm, and you can see I have to back up a couple of times to get it in focus. And then in retrospect, it still wasn't even focused. I should have backed up even more. And then I zoomed it all the way and took the shot again. And you can see that there. So looking at the pros and cons of this lens, the pros, incredibly sharp images, true macro lens at a very low cost. It is lightweight and compact, has a quiet autofocus motor, and overall it's an excellent value. Your cons, they could be cons for some people. There is no vibration reduction. You have to use a very close working distance, which for some people that could be a problem. And it is plastic built, even though it has the metal mount, which I guess some people do not like. So is this lens worth buying today? I would say absolutely 100% yes. It has been a really great lens. Who should buy it immediately? Anyone on a budget that wants a macro lens, or any of the other things I listed that it is good for doing. It can also be a good efficiency lens where you can use it for multiple things with only having to buy one lens. And it is definitely one of the best budget macro lenses around. So if you shoot with a Nikon crop sensor camera, and this can be used on the mirrorless cameras with the adapter. So whether it's DSLR or mirrorless, if it's a crop sensor at Nikon, you can use this lens. So without spending a fortune, this lens is truly a no-brainer. Thank you for your time. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give me a thumbs down. It helps me plan my future content accordingly. And I would love if you would consider subscribing to the channel. And I'd love a comment down below if you've used this lens or any other macro lens, and any comments on what you would like me to cover in the future. Again, thank you so much for joining me. Have a great day, guys, and God bless you.